In the late 1980s, British television was locked in a quiet but relentless battle for attention. Ratings mattered more than ever, competition between channels was fierce, and entertainment was increasingly defined by scale rather than substance. The era prized spectacle, bigger sets, louder hosts, and stunts that blurred the line between daring and dangerous. Live television, once governed by caution and strict oversight, began to drift toward risk as a selling point. Within this climate, the Late Late Breakfast show emerged as a symbol of excess, ambition, and ultimately hubris. Broadcast on BBC One and fronted by Noel Edmonds, the show was conceived as a sprawling weekend event, designed to dominate Saturday mornings through sheer energy and unpredictability. What it delivered in attention, however, it increasingly lacked in restraint. The program's format was deliberately chaotic. Celebrity guests, comedy sketches, live music, audience participation, and outdoor stunts were stitched together into a marathon broadcast that stretched for hours. The guiding philosophy was simple: surprise the audience at all costs. Producers believed that routine was the enemy and that escalation was necessary to keep viewers engaged. Each week, the stunts grew more elaborate, more ambitious, and more hazardous. Members of the public were invited to take part in challenges that were framed as light-hearted opportunities but were, in reality, poorly defined tests of endurance or bravery. The presence of a live broadcast created pressure to proceed regardless of warning signs, reinforcing a culture where stopping was seen as failure. Behind the scenes, this ambition was not matched by professional safeguards. Safety planning was inconsistent, often informal, and frequently subordinated to production deadlines. Risk assessments, where they existed at all, were superficial. Decisions were made quickly, sometimes by individuals without the technical expertise to understand the dangers involved. The assumption was that enthusiasm, improvisation, and goodwill could compensate for a lack of formal structure. This assumption would prove fatal. On November 13, 1986, the Late Late Breakfast show prepared to air what it believed would be a headline-making stunt. The segment involved a young British Army corporal named Michael Lush, who volunteered to participate in an endurance challenge that would test how long a person could remain suspended in a harness from a crane. The stunt was presented as controlled, carefully monitored, and safe. Viewers were told it was a test of mental resilience rather than physical danger, an exercise in stamina rather than risk. In reality, the stunt was fundamentally flawed from the outset. The harness system had not been adequately tested under real conditions. It failed to distribute weight safely across the body, instead concentrating pressure on the torso in a way that restricted breathing and blood flow. There was no comprehensive medical evaluation of how long a person could safely remain suspended in such a position. Emergency procedures were vague, and authority to stop the stunt was poorly defined. No independent safety officer was present with the power to intervene. The production moved forward based on confidence rather than evidence. As the broadcast went live, Michael Lush was hoisted into the air, suspended high above the ground. At first, the stunt appeared to unfold as planned. Lush spoke calmly over the radio link, responding to questions and reassuring those listening that he was coping well. From the studio and from the audience at home, the image was dramatic but not alarming. This outward appearance of control masked the danger developing beneath the surface. As minutes passed, Lush's condition began to deteriorate. The harness compressed his body in a way that made breathing increasingly difficult. Blood circulation was compromised and the strain on his organs intensified. His voice grew weaker, his responses slower. These were clear signs of medical distress, but within the culture of the show, they were misinterpreted or dismissed. Some assumed he was simply tired. Others believed the struggle was part of the challenge, an expected element of endurance television. Behind the scenes, uncertainty turned into paralysis. Production staff debated whether intervention was necessary, unsure whether stopping the stunt would undermine the broadcast or whether continuing posed a real danger. The absence of clear authority meant no one felt empowered to make the decisive call. The delay, measured in minutes, proved catastrophic. Michael Lush lost consciousness while still suspended in the harness. By the time the crane was lowered and emergency assistance reached him, the damage was irreversible. Attempts to revive him failed. He was pronounced dead shortly afterward. He was 24 years old. A man who had trusted a national broadcaster to protect him had died in the course of a television stunt designed to entertain. The immediate aftermath was one of shock and disbelief. Within the BBC, the realization that a live entertainment program had directly caused a death triggered panic and soul-searching. The Late Late Breakfast show was cancelled almost instantly. Planned broadcasts were removed from the schedule, and the show effectively vanished overnight. What had been promoted as bold innovation was now regarded as a symbol of recklessness. Public reaction was swift and unforgiving. Newspapers condemned the program and questioned how such a lapse could occur within the BBC, an institution long associated with responsibility and public trust. Politicians and media critics demanded answers. The idea that a young man had died not in an accident of fate but as the result of avoidable negligence struck a nerve. The inquest into Michael Lush's death revealed a damning pattern of failures. There had been no proper risk assessment. Medical advice was either not sought or not heeded. Equipment was inappropriate and untested. Most critically, there was no clear chain of command capable of stopping the stunt once it was underway. The coroner concluded that Lush died from compression asphyxia caused by the harness, a death that was entirely preventable. The findings forced the BBC to confront systemic issues within its entertainment division. Competitive pressure, the desire for spectacle, and a culture of improvisation had overridden fundamental safety principles. The incident demonstrated how easily responsibility could dissolve when excitement became the primary objective. In response, the BBC introduced sweeping reforms. Safety procedures for entertainment programming were overhauled. Risk assessments became mandatory and detailed. Independent safety officers were granted authority to halt productions at any stage. Medical supervision was required for any stunt involving physical risk. These changes reshaped British television, setting standards that would endure for decades. For Noel Edmonds, the incident became an inescapable shadow. Though he would later return to television prominence, the memory of the Late Late Breakfast show incident lingered, shaping public perception and personal legacy alike. For the families of Michael Lush, no reform could compensate for the loss. His death was not an abstraction or a lesson. It was a permanent absence. Today, the Late Late Breakfast show incident is remembered as one of the most serious failures in British broadcasting history. It stands as a reminder that entertainment does not exist in a moral vacuum. When ordinary people are placed at the center of spectacle, duty of care is not optional. The incident underscores a truth that extends beyond television. Systems built for excitement but not for safety will eventually demand a human cost. Long after the cameras stopped rolling and the studio lights went dark, the consequences of that morning endured. The silence left behind, where laughter and applause were once expected, became the true legacy of the Late Late Breakfast show. It is a legacy written not in ratings or innovation, but in loss, accountability, and the enduring reminder that no audience reaction is worth a human life.